Have you ever noticed how some people seem genuinely happy for you at first, only to become strangely distant the moment your life begins to change? Nothing dramatic happens. There are no arguments, no harsh words, no obvious signs of conflict. Yet something shifts. Their enthusiasm becomes forced. Their compliments lose their warmth. Conversations that once flowed naturally suddenly feel heavy, almost calculated. It's as if your success silently exposed something they never wanted to confront within themselves. The unsettling part is that most people never recognize this change until the damage has already been done. They assume everyone celebrating them is cheering from the same place. But not every smile carries goodwill, and not every person standing beside you is hoping you'll reach the finish line. Sometimes the loudest applause hides the quietest resentment. Today, we're going to uncover 6 subtle things jealous people often do when they realize they can no longer compete with you. These aren't always obvious attacks. They're quiet patterns, hidden behaviors, and carefully disguised reactions that reveal far more about them than they ever will with words. Once you understand these patterns, you'll stop confusing silent competition with genuine friendship, and you'll begin seeing certain relationships through an entirely different lens. Throughout history, philosophers and psychologists have observed that people rarely reveal their deepest emotions directly. Pride disguises fear. Anger often conceals pain. And jealousy almost never introduces itself by name. It hides behind politeness, criticism, indifference, and even praise. Few people will openly admit they envy someone else's progress because doing so would require confronting their own disappointments. It is much easier to pretend nothing has changed while quietly hoping the person ahead of them eventually slows down. That is why jealousy is one of the most misunderstood emotions. People imagine it as explosive and obvious, but more often it moves in complete silence. Think about the people who climb mountains. The higher they ascend, the fewer companions remain beside them. Some people simply cannot continue the journey because the climb demands more discipline than they are willing to give. Others stop because watching someone else keep climbing forces them to question why they stopped trying. The mountain itself never creates jealousy. It simply reveals what already existed inside those who chose not to keep climbing. Success works the same way. It doesn't transform everyone around you. It exposes who they already were. The first change often happens so quietly that most people miss it completely. Jealous people begin observing you far more closely than they support you. They become experts on your routines, your achievements, your habits, even your mistakes. They remember details you forgot about yourself. They notice when you wake up earlier, when your confidence grows, when your appearance changes, when opportunities begin finding their way into your life. At first glance, this attention may seem flattering. You might mistake it for admiration or genuine interest. But admiration inspires learning, while jealousy collects information for a very different purpose. Imagine someone standing outside a beautiful garden. One visitor walks through the gate to understand how the flowers were grown. Another remains outside counting every leaf, hoping to discover a flaw. From a distance, both appear equally interested. But their intentions could not be more different. One seeks inspiration. The other searches for imperfections. Jealous people often behave like the second visitor. They study your life not because they want to become better, but because they are waiting for evidence that you are not as successful as everyone believes. This is why they ask unusual questions. They become curious about details they never cared about before. They casually wonder how much you earn, who helped you, how you met certain people, how often you work, or whether everything is really going as well as it appears. None of these questions seem threatening by themselves. In fact, they often sound like ordinary conversation. But over time, you begin noticing a pattern. They rarely celebrate the effort behind your progress. Instead, they quietly investigate it. They aren't searching for your secret to grow themselves. They're searching for an explanation that allows them to believe your success isn't fully deserved. People who truly admire your progress usually leave conversations feeling motivated. They ask questions because they want to improve their own lives. They become inspired by your discipline, your persistence, or your mindset. Jealous people leave those same conversations carrying something entirely different. They carry comparisons. Every answer becomes another reason to measure themselves against you. Every achievement reminds them of a goal they abandoned or a dream they postponed. Instead of using your example as motivation, they use it as fuel for silent frustration. Perhaps the saddest part is that many of them don't even realize what they're doing. Jealousy rarely announces itself with honesty. It slowly reshapes perception. The more they compare, the less they appreciate their own journey. The more they watch your progress, the less attention they give to building their own future. Before long, they become spectators in someone else's life instead of authors of their own. While you're focused on improving one day at a time, they're investing their energy keeping track of every step you take. And that is where the real danger begins. Because once someone becomes more interested in watching your progress than creating their own, observation is no longer enough. The mind starts searching for a story that makes your success easier to accept. If they cannot convince themselves they could achieve what you've achieved, they begin looking for another explanation, one that protects their pride, even if it distorts the truth. And that is where the next behavior quietly takes shape, often without you realizing it until the damage has already spread. The strange thing about jealousy is that it rarely attacks success directly. Instead, it attacks the story behind the success. Most people understand that hard work deserves respect. Discipline deserves admiration. Sacrifice deserves reward. But for someone consumed by comparison, accepting those truths can be painfully uncomfortable because it forces them to confront a question they have been avoiding for years: if they earned it, then what have I been doing? Rather than facing that question honestly, the mind often searches for an easier escape. It begins rewriting reality until someone else's victory feels less impressive. That is why jealous people often become storytellers. Not the kind who inspire others, but the kind who quietly reshape facts until they fit the version of the world they want to believe. Suddenly, your success wasn't the result of years of consistency. It was luck. Your opportunities weren't created through preparation. They were handed to you. Your confidence becomes arrogance. Your discipline becomes obsession. Your persistence becomes selfish ambition. Piece by piece, the story changes. Not because the facts have changed, but because the truth has become too uncomfortable for them to accept. Pay close attention to how this happens. It almost never begins with open accusations. It starts with small comments that sound harmless on the surface. Someone casually says, "Well, they were in the right place at the right time." Another quietly adds, "Things are easier for them." Someone else shrugs and says, "Let's see how long it lasts." None of these statements seem particularly hostile by themselves. In fact, each one sounds reasonable enough to avoid suspicion. Yet together, they slowly chip away at the value of everything you've worked for. It is like watching rain fall on stone. One drop changes nothing. Thousands of drops eventually reshape the surface. Imagine an artist spending years mastering their craft. Every failed sketch, every late night, every moment of self-doubt becomes part of the masterpiece no one else sees. Then, after finally earning recognition, someone glances at the finished painting and says, "They're just naturally talented." In a single sentence, years of unseen effort disappear. The struggle becomes invisible. The discipline becomes irrelevant. All because acknowledging the full story would require admitting that extraordinary results often come from ordinary habits repeated for an extraordinary length of time. This is one of the quietest forms of disrespect because it doesn't attack you directly. It attacks your journey. And when people no longer respect the journey, they stop respecting the destination as well. But something even more revealing begins to happen after they convince themselves of this new story. They slowly disappear whenever your life reaches another milestone. Watch carefully who celebrates with genuine excitement when something good happens to you. Real supporters don't compete with your joy. They multiply it. They call without hesitation. They send heartfelt messages. They smile because your victory reminds them that progress is possible. Jealous people respond very differently. Your biggest moments are often met with unusual silence. The promotion receives no congratulations. The business success goes unnoticed. Your personal growth becomes invisible. Days pass without a single word. It almost feels as though your achievement never happened. At first, you may excuse it. Everyone is busy. People have their own lives. Surely they just forgot. Sometimes that's true. But when the pattern repeats itself over and over again, it begins revealing something deeper. The silence isn't random. It becomes selective. Then something fascinating happens the moment life becomes difficult for you. Perhaps a project fails. Maybe an opportunity slips away. Maybe you make an honest mistake that anyone could have made. Suddenly, the same people who couldn't find 30 seconds to celebrate your victories somehow find endless time to discuss your setbacks. They check in immediately. They become curious. They want every detail. Their concern sounds compassionate, but beneath their questions there is often an unusual sense of relief, as though balance has finally been restored. This is why setbacks reveal relationships more clearly than success ever can. Success tells you who applauds. Failure tells you who secretly needed you to fall. One exposes admiration. The other exposes comparison. There is a profound difference between someone who comforts you because they genuinely care and someone who feels emotionally lighter because your stumble temporarily closes the gap between their life and yours. The first person helps you stand again. The second quietly hopes you remain where you fell. None of this means becoming suspicious of everyone around you. Life is far too complex for every quiet reaction to come from jealousy. People experience stress, personal struggles, and moments of distraction. Sometimes silence is simply silence. But when these patterns appear consistently, when your victories are ignored, your effort is minimized, and your setbacks receive far more attention than your achievements, it becomes difficult to dismiss them as coincidence. The important lesson is not to become bitter. It is to become observant. Wisdom is not learning how to distrust everyone. Wisdom is learning to recognize the difference between those who celebrate your growth because they love seeing you become your best, and those who only feel comfortable when your progress slows down. Because jealousy rarely stops with rewriting your story or disappearing during your victories. Eventually, watching from the sidelines is no longer enough. The comparison grows heavier, the frustration grows deeper, and many jealous people begin searching for a way to reduce the distance between you and them. But instead of raising themselves higher, they choose a path that is far easier. They begin borrowing pieces of the very person they secretly envy, convincing themselves, and everyone else, that those ideas were theirs all along. There is an irony about jealousy that many people never notice. The very person who criticizes you the most often becomes the one who slowly starts looking more like you. It doesn't happen overnight. It begins with small things that are easy to overlook. A phrase you often use suddenly appears in their conversations. A habit you develop becomes one they proudly display. Your approach to work, your style, your ideas, even the way you carry yourself gradually begins to appear in their own life. If someone genuinely admired you, there would be nothing dishonest about this. We all learn from people who inspire us. Growth has always involved observing others and applying valuable lessons. The difference is honesty. People who admire you have no problem saying, "Your example encouraged me," or, "I learned something from watching you." There is humility in that kind of respect because it celebrates growth instead of pretending originality. Jealous people rarely do that. They borrow quietly while continuing to criticize openly. They dismiss your ideas one day, only to present those same ideas as their own another day. It is one of the strangest contradictions of human nature. They reject what they secretly wish they had created. This happens because jealousy and admiration are closer than most people realize. Both begin by paying attention. Both involve noticing someone's strengths. The difference lies in what happens next. Admiration says, "What can I learn?" Jealousy asks, "How can I have what they have without admitting they inspired me?" One creates growth. The other creates imitation without gratitude. If you've experienced this before, resist the temptation to become angry. Originality is difficult to steal for long. Someone may imitate your words, your appearance, or your methods, but they cannot duplicate your experiences, your character, or the countless lessons that shaped who you have become. A shadow can resemble the person standing in the light, but it can never become that person. Eventually, authenticity always separates itself from imitation. And this leads to the final pattern, perhaps the most subtle and the most painful of them all. When jealous people realize they cannot outwork you, outgrow you, or outshine you, they often try something entirely different. They attempt to make your greatest strengths look like your greatest flaws. Confidence suddenly becomes arrogance. Discipline becomes obsession. High standards become being too difficult. Healthy boundaries become selfishness. Your refusal to settle becomes pride. Notice how easily society sometimes accepts these labels. The moment someone refuses to shrink themselves to make others comfortable, there is often pressure to explain, apologize, or become smaller again. Not because they have done something wrong, but because their confidence quietly challenges people who have accepted less from themselves. Imagine carrying a bright lantern through a dark room. The lantern doesn't create the darkness around it. It simply makes the darkness more visible. In much the same way, your commitment to becoming a better version of yourself can unintentionally remind others of promises they made to themselves but never kept. Your discipline reflects their excuses. Your courage reflects their hesitation. Your consistency reflects their abandoned goals. You stop taking every criticism personally. You stop believing every misunderstanding must be corrected. You stop exhausting yourself trying to convince people to see your heart when they have already decided to judge your actions through the lens of comparison. Not every opinion deserves your explanation. Not every accusation deserves your response. And not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your life. Real peace begins the moment you understand that your purpose is not to manage how other people interpret your success. Your responsibility is to continue becoming the person you were created to be, with humility, integrity, and quiet determination. The people who truly belong in your life will never feel threatened by your growth. They will celebrate your victories as though they were their own. They will encourage you when you doubt yourself. They will challenge you to become even better, not because they are competing with you, but because they genuinely want to see you flourish. Those people are rare, and they are worth protecting. The others will continue comparing, criticizing, minimizing, and watching from a distance. But remember this: comparison consumes enormous energy. Every moment spent measuring someone else's progress is a moment not spent improving your own life. That is why jealousy traps people in the very place they desperately want to escape. While they are busy studying your journey, they neglect their own. So don't allow another person's hidden resentment to become your burden. Let them misunderstand your intentions if they choose to. Let them underestimate your discipline. Let them tell themselves whatever story helps them sleep at night. None of those stories can erase the work you've done, the sacrifices you've made, or the person you're becoming. Keep learning. Keep growing. Keep showing up on the days when nobody notices your effort. Because real success has never been about proving doubters wrong. It has always been about proving to yourself that you are capable of becoming more than you were yesterday. The opinions of jealous people will come and go like passing storms, but the character you build through patience, discipline, and perseverance will remain long after those voices have faded into silence. If this message helped you see certain situations in a new light, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who may need this reminder today. And if you enjoy exploring the deeper truths about human nature, philosophy, and personal growth, subscribe and join us for more conversations that challenge the way we think and inspire the way we live. Until next time, keep your focus on your own path, because the people who spend their lives watching yours rarely find the time to build one of their own.